something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware.
Well, we were on what they call down in vernacular is a suppression of enemy air defenses. We were going into North Vietnam, deploying chaff, aluminum foil that confuses the radars. And we were quite successful on it, several missions. And the anti-aircraft would only come up after the strike guys, ones with the bombs. And the day I got shot down, they put up 14 MiGs, specifically, as we learned later, to come after the us, the chaff guys. We had 8 aircraft going up, dropping these leaflet bombs, which had previously been used to, surrender, to the Viet Cong. They put the pamphlets in, or the leaflets in there. And all of a sudden, I got heat-seeking missile up the tailpipe and blew the tail off the airplane. And I tried to fly it. Doesn't work well without a tail. And then we were tumbling, and on fire, but I was still trying to fly it. And we were pitching up and down. I was up here against the canopy. I realized that every idiot light in the cockpit is on, saying, you really got problems. And about that time, the control stick flopped over in a corner, which really meant we were in trouble because we didn't have any hydraulics left. And I said at that point, okay, Pete, we're gone. And he didn't hear me. So when I pulled the ejection handle to eject, whoop, there he went. And but he survived as well. And spent about an hour on the ground before the bad guys got me. Civilians, not happy campers. When I was back in some bushes, and this guy put, what to me was a large bore 22 or something like that through the bushes and babbled something. It went down in my mind what he wanted. And anyway, about 2 minutes later, I'm standing there. They didn't use zipper 1 on my flight suit or G suit or anything. Standing there in my skivvies and socks. And that was it. With the rope around my neck, they trussed up my arms, elbows touching in the back. I think back, geez, was I that supple then? Because it was a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't like now I'd rip my shoulders out. And we took off walking. We were going to go to some kind of a trailhead where there would be, hopefully, motorized transport to take us wherever they were going to take us. And we got this little hamlet, I think 3 buildings maybe, and somebody brought out a stool and set it in the middle of a pig pen. And I sat there, and they're all, of course, looking at me and babbling, and but at least they weren't whacking me with their bamboo poles like had happened with the guys that captured me. And my flight leader had gone back after he completed the mission, went back to the tanker, got fuel, and came back in, made a pass by just on the chance they might get some radio contact. Didn't happen, obviously. But when they rang the air raid gong, which turned out to be a hollowed out 750-pound bomb, guy just take a big mallet and bong. And anyway, we went down in a pit type thing. And as we came out, I was starting to kind of come out of the little bit of the initial phase of shock. I looked around, and everything was bunkered, but they had used jettisoned fuel tanks from every fighter that I was aware of, F-105s, F-4s, F-100s, or F-101s. I thought, boy, what if somebody said, oh, we're going to go down a strafe down there. Well, there'd been a hell of a fire, I assume. Anyway, and then after a while, time stops. You have no concept. I heard a Jeep off in the distance, and they took me up, handed me down to the road, actually, and then over here on a fork in the road came my back seater. He was being escorted by a huge crowd, and he said, I wish you'd told me. I said, I did, Pete. You just didn't hear me. And that's about the last communication we had, because it found out they don't like you talking to each other. Rifle butts have a way of getting your attention. Anyway, they threw us in the back of this Jeep, and off we went. And every little hamlet we'd come to, they'd honk the horn and, come see the Yankee Air Pirates and war criminals or whatever it was they were saying. It was always in Vietnamese. I call June the 21st, 1972, the longest day of the year, literally and figuratively. It normally is the longest day of the year. And so I also call it, the day I had 4 opportunities to die and didn't. The first one was in the airplane. The second one was during the capture itself. The people talk about, what, do you want to shoot it out with the bad guys or not? I'm going, you got to be shitting me. You can die that way. And I know guys that died that way, and know of more. And then the next event was we had to cross on a ferry across the Red River. And the guy had his bullhorn, and he's, rebel-rising all the crowd. Wasn't too bad on one side of the river, but on the other side of the river, they were pissed. Is the best way to put it. They couldn't get the truck off the ferry because of the people there, and people coming on the ferry, and they're rocking the car, the truck, Jeep, whatever it was. And I really thought, this could be it. I was really concerned when I realized that the 2 guards that we had their bayonets out towards the crowd, not towards us, which is a pretty good clue. And the guy kept gunning the engine, and eventually we got away, and could just barely see under my what had been my T-shirt was now my blindfold. I could just barely see under there. And I said, son of a bitch, there's guys running after the truck, Pete. And I found out once again they didn't like for us to, communicate. And we went on the 4th time that I thought it was all over. We went somewhere, and they took us into a little building, and there were 3 guys up here, kind of like going before the judge. Here's 3 guys up here on a panel, and they started asking, name, rank, serial number, all that stuff. And I can tell you right now that name, rank, serial number does not cut it. They know who you are. They already knew who we were. Wonder why? Well, we got these janitors that clean up our briefing rooms and whatnot, and this mission had been on hold for about 10 days. And so they're in there cleaning up every day. All they had to do is pull the curtain back. And we knew that there were people on base. You just didn't know who they were. So they knew who I was. They knew who Pete was. They knew who the flight lead was. And initially, when you try to, cold shoulder them, shall I say, it's when you find out that cold steel against your temple really gets your attention as well. And then they just kind of abruptly broke off the initial interrogation. It was almost like it was more intimidation, which we were intimidated, no doubt about it. And they took us out. We're going to get in the truck and proceed on to Hanoi. And the truck had a flat, and so they shunted us aside, and I call it, watching monkeys with a football. It was hilarious these guys trying to figure out, one, how to work the jack, how to get the spare tire off, just like off the truck, and then it was on a little bit of a slope. Anyway, so Pete and I are off by ourselves, so we had a chance to talk for a bit, and had a chance to loosen up his ropes that were holding him, and he got mine a little bit loose, which made it really nice. And he said, "What do you think?" He said, "We're supposed to try to escape." And I said, "Pete," I said, "what do you got?" "I got socks on. I got underwear on. I'm white. You got socks on. You got underwear on. You're white. How far are we going to get? Do you know where we are?" He said, "No." I said, "We've been had." Anyway, so they finally got the tire changed, threw us in the back, and we headed off towards Hanoi. And so we got to Hanoi about daybreak, I guess maybe a little bit later. The sun was at, not daybreak, the sunrise. Sun came up, they threw a tarp over us because we were going through some populated areas, and at this point they didn't want to, us to even appear to anybody. And got real hot under that tarp. Still think about that. Smelled like canvas, just like when you're in a tent. And anyway, so then they separated us, and that's when the real interrogation started. About what are the next targets? And I was a captain. I'm going, I'm just a measly captain. Why would I know what the next targets are? We don't find that out until we go into the briefing. "Oh, you must know." I said, "No, I don't know." So I finally told, "Well, Hanoi." "Oh, no, they never come here. Air defense is too big." They did, eventually, as we well know, in December. I think my interrogation lasted roughly, off and on, 7 days. Sleep deprivation was one of their big components. And mosquitoes. They had a bedboard to lay down on. Initially, didn't even have a straw mat. Had nothing, cover me. Mosquitoes were, they were unfriendly, as you would expect. And about the time you feel like you're really dropping off, and I'd hurt my back, compressed a couple of vertebrae on ejection, and which I knew that something wasn't normal. So I, get in a prenatal position. I said, "Oh God, this feels good." Just about the time I doze off, I swear they had somebody looking out there. "Okay, let's go in and wake him up again," and put me on a stool and start asking more questions. And so, like I say, maybe 8 days. You don't know. There's a light bulb on at all times. And in this particular room, even during air raids, that light bulb stayed on. I eventually was put in one of the really, really small cells, maybe 8 by 8, if that. And there I could get sleep because when air raid came on, the lights would go out. And other than that, Pete and I got back together after a couple of weeks, I guess it was, and we talked about, okay, what'd they ask you? What'd they ask you? They were told what to ask. You kind of start to sense that during the interrogations. They're coming in, they're looking for specific information. Like how many B-52s are there at Utapao Air Base, Thailand? Why would I want to know? I mean, how could I know? I'm a fighter pilot, already I was flying the F-4, not a B-52. And so we played all day one day, played the numbers game. And, I think it could be 8 or 10, Well, the number kept going up. And first time I met, a B-52 guy, I said, "How many B-52s are at Utapao?" And he said, "There are 52 hard stands." Okay, 52 B-52s. We never got to that number during the interrogation, but they wanted some kind of a number. I think we're in the mid-30s, 40s, like that. But that took all day, And they took a little break to go have tea or whatever it was and come back. Okay, let's talk about that more. And they asked some technical questions of which I had no clue about laser guided weapons. Anyway, so Pete and I, kind of sorted everything out, and then we got put in with two other guys. We were transported to another prison on the southwest side of town called, I used to know the real name, but we call it the Zoo. And had kind of funny names for the rooms, as we found out from different people. We eventually get put in with 5 other guys into a section that was called the Pigsty. And we now are the Pigsty Gang, and that's the moniker on our little mailing list that we use. And anyway, a bunch of good guys. And then December bombing came along. Hip, hip, hooray. The question had been asked, were you afraid? Yeah, we had some concerns, but we knew we were going home. We needed that in our mind. I had told somebody that I think the vote for Nixon, as heavily as he won, I said, that's a mandate. Good, he talked about, for a couple of years trying to end the war. And when the B-52 showed up, I thought it was a dead of night. Bob said, no, first TOT in which he was shot down was 8 o'clock. I go, it was already dark. But anyway, hell of a fireworks show with the anti-aircraft going off, and unfortunately, one of my cellmates was up. He could look at a little peephole by standing on the bars of the windows, and he said, "Holy shit!" He said, "I think that's a wing of a B-52." It was Bob Certan's airplane, So it took us many years to finally figure that out, but so anyway, and then. We were told about the peace accords, and that we would be being released in every 2 weeks. And in early February, we look up and here's a 141, white, big red cross on it, and the camp erupted. I mean, we just went bonkers, yelling, screaming, and the guards didn't know what to do, which was fine by all of us. And they started trying to fatten us up. We got rice. We never got rice. We got rice. We got occasionally a banana. Like I said, trying to fatten us up. Didn't work very well because I think I came out at 127 pounds. My fighting weight at that time was probably about 150. So, I mean, got picked up, went to Clark Air Base, then to Hickam Air Base, Hawaii, Clark Air Base in the Philippines, and got on an airplane to go to Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C., where I was reunited with my family. And rainy, cold, miserable Washington, D.C. day, 31st of March was the get back together date. My release date was the 28th of March. So that's pretty much it in a capsule.
How special was it to come back to family?
It's you can't describe it. I mean, it's an elation that just I did get one Red Cross package that had some pictures from Christmas. My son, who was 4 at the time, 4.5, and the look on their face, they were very happy because they too had surmised what's going on is going to be the end. Anyways, so I had pictures of them, and I still have those pictures. They're in my little scrapbook. It's an undescribable emotion, quite frankly. It's one of those, if you haven't experienced it, I can't quite tell you what it's like, but it's a thrilling, emotional,
During the dog days, there had to have been some really tough days in captivity. How'd you get through?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot. I've had guys come up and say, "Oh God, I never could have done what you did." I said, "What you do is you take it one day at a time. And okay, hey, I'm awake. It's another day." And yeah, you get a little depressed occasionally. I don't know how some of the guys got through being in solitary confinement for year after year. I mean, 3, 4, 5 years. Some of the senior guys. Yeah, we had our own support group. Yeah, when somebody's down a little bit, they say, "Hey, Pete, you doing okay today?" "No," I said, "I've been thinking about my wife. She was pregnant when I left, and so on." Anyway, and so we just all boost each other up, and a lot of gallows humor too. I mean, make light of simple things. Some of it, I'm not going to give any examples, but which some people would go, "These guys are friggin' nuts." We might have been, slightly. Who knows? So, but yeah, there are some down days, but we got, we boosted each other up, and it was interesting. Well, Pete asked me when on the way in. He said, "How long are we going to be here?" I said, "We'll be home by Easter, I think." "Easter? You don't think Thanksgiving?" I said, "No, no." Well, it turns out everybody had this, idea that, okay, we'll be home by Easter. We'll be home by the 4th of July. We'll be home by Thanksgiving, so on and so forth. And any straw in the wind, I said, "Hey, what's going on?" Like the SR-71, the Blackbird used to fly over every day, precisely at noon. So you'd hear the boom, boom, sonic boom. Well, sonic boom went away. We're going, uh-oh, what's happening now? Well, it's what we learned later was kind of a false peace, that the Vietnamese had started talking, we had started talking. Oh, we'd always tried to talk. See, that was one of the biggest things. And then somebody would hear a rumor, overhear the guards talking to another prisoner or something like that.